Hey, how's it going? Today we're going to try out the control list that All Out Blitzel used to win a pretty big online tournament the other night. He won one, I think, last night, and 2 nights ago got second place with a very similar list with just a couple changes, like the Hero's Cape was the brace that doesn't let you get knocked out, and there was a second Rotom and stuff like that. But I found this deck to actually be really good right now. It's probably the best that Control's been in a couple sets, and yeah, it just seems really strong. We got the 3 Mimikyu. There is no Cornerstone Ogerpon. Mimikyu is just an all-around better starter, and most of the time in most situations Mimikyu is doing the same thing that Cornerstone would be doing anyway, and Cornerstone's really only for Charizard right now, so Mimikyu is going to basically do the same thing. So we're just playing Mimikyu. We have Pidgeot to find whatever cards we need. We have Sandshrew that says trainer cards in our opponent's discard pile can't be put into their deck, so they can't play Pal Pad to get Turos back. Other control decks can't use their Cylenes to get back Pal Pads. Got Lumineon and Rotom for draw. Luxray with the Fang Snipe attack, throw a Bravery Charm on this guy, put a DT on it, and start picking trainer cards out of our opponent's hand. A lot of decks can't or won't be able to one-shot a Luxray right at the beginning of the game with a Bravery Charm, so we can kind of start penny looping that at the beginning if we want. We also have the Wellspring Ogerpon, which for a colorless does 20 damage, sob, our opponent can't retreat, so we throw a double turbo on this guy, and we sob for 0, and we can retreat lock something for the rest of the game if our opponent doesn't have a way to move it, and then we can just like Cyllene loop our Pal Pads back and we won't deck out and our opponent will. We have Terapagos. Terapagos is really good in this deck. It might seem a little weird, but it's going to be for taking care of those early game threats like Sandy Shocks or Charmeleons, anything like that, anything that poses us a real big problem. We can throw a Bravery Charm on it and either knock it out or two-shot it with a penny. And for the Sandy Shocks and the Charmeleon, stuff like that, we're going to want to just throw our Lost City in play and get rid of it so that then we can stick Mimikyu in the active and really let Mimikyu take over the game from there. Genesect is super good. It's best against Prime Catcher decks. We just throw a tool on it and our opponent can't play Prime Catcher, so it's like removing a switch and a gust from their deck. Really good. Bloodmoon Ursaluna is going to be how we end up winning a good amount of games. We just penny loop Bloodmoon Ursaluna at the end of the game to take our 6 prizes. And then the rest is just supporters. We have Misfortune Sisters. We can look for rare candies, switches, any item cards from the top 5 cards of our opponent's deck. Cyllene just to get whatever we need back. Thorton in case our opponent knocks out a Pidgey early. We can just Thorton back into a Pidgey. We can also use it to just recover whatever Pokemon from the discard pile we want. Boss and Iona are self-explanatory. We got Giacomo, really good against Mist Energy and Charizard, so that we can use our TM Devo. We can also get rid of Terapagos, like all their energies sometimes with the Giacomos, or however you say it. And, you know, it can be good against Lugia as well if we can get them to spread their energy really thin. Eerie, just a broken card. And then, yeah, the rest of the deck is just trying to get us set up and make it so we got all the tools so we don't take damage. TM Devo, I already explained Mist Energy, so we can't get TM Devo'd, and double turbo energies to attack. Hey, I just realized I used the term penny loop a few times and never really explained what it is, so this is me putting this in after the fact. It's just when we penny up the Pokemon in the active that usually got damaged by an attack, we send up our Pidgeot and rebench the Pokemon and attach the energy and Bravery Charm and then retreat back into it and do that over and over. So that is the list. Let's get into the games. Alright, game 1 here, we're up against Raging Bull Ogerpon. I end up starting Mimikyu, which is pretty perfect. It's like probably the most perfect starter we could ask for. And I play a Buddy Poffin, which is exactly what we want to start in our hand, so it's pretty good. Everything's going pretty good right now. Checking my prizes. I did prize the Terapagos and Heavy Ball and my second Pidgey, so that is rather unfortunate. So I just Nest Ball for Rotom and charge up. Now, next turn I can Ultra Ball for Lumineon and get the Pidgeot going. And my opponent has a really slow turn. This is kind of perfect. I'm guessing that their hand is dead. I don't know. I'm sure they could have done something. I think I see their hand at some point and they have a Squawkabilly in their hand, but they might have just been a little afraid to put that down, which I don't blame them. If they're up against like Snorlax, then that would probably lose in the game. So there's Arven, or Ultra Ball for Lumineon, for Arven, for Candy and Forest, and yeah, now we can basically do whatever we want. I can quick search here. I think I'm going to grab a Bravery Charm for my Mimikyu. I might end up grabbing, oh no, it's for the Genesect. I think I have a Nest Ball. Yeah, I grab Bravery Charm for the Genesect so that I can turn on its ability. I would have rather have been able to like pick up my Lumineon and attach the Forest to the Genesect, but I don't want them to like have some Prime Catcher combo in their hand and knock out my Pidgeot. So yeah, I'm thinking about grabbing Penny here so that I can just start cleaning up my board, but I decided to grab Hero's Cape. I'm really just most afraid of getting my Pidgeot knocked out. And then I draw some cards. This game is kind of boring so far, but definitely gets a bit more interesting now that they've Nest Balled. They Nest Ball for their Sandy Shocks and just pass. I find this happens a lot. People are just really afraid when they're playing against control, and they either just totally disregard everything and play normally and put a bunch of liabilities in play, or play extremely slow, which I think them playing this slow is pretty fair right now. It doesn't seem like I'm doing much, but now after next turn, I'll basically have my board exactly how I want it. I think next turn I might end up using Penny, but I also might Misfortune Sisters since it is in my hand. Because I want to get the Lumineon off my board, and I do end up doing that. Now I have basically my perfect board set up. All that I'm missing is access to the Terapagos to Lost City that Sandy Shocks, which is kind of unfortunate. And now my opponent is deciding to play cards, which makes sense. They were just waiting until they had enough stuff in their hand, I'm guessing. They fill up their board and just pass. This is kind of a weird game, but I use quick search here so that they're less likely to know what I got off of it. They'll just think that I got Misfortune Sisters. And we hit not the ideal cards, but a couple decent cards to hit off it in the Vessel and the Gear. And what I was thinking about quick searching for with the Pidgeot at first in the Stretcher was I wanted to set up my hand so that if they knock out my Pidgeot, I can Thorton it right back out. And they hit into my Mimikyu for 90. I'm thinking about pennying it up, but I decided not to. I kind of want them to take a single prize, and so I can like use my counter catchers and stuff. So I just boss up their Raging Bolt to get them to start burning more switch cards. Because either what I want to do is get rid of this Sandy Shocks forever and just get to a board where they can never take 6 prizes because there is too many Mimikyus in play, or get them to a point where their energies like spread too thin throughout the board and I can keep gusting up whatever Raging Bolt doesn't have any energy on it and getting it stuck in the active. And then just like Cyllene looping until they deck out, because I still have 2 Pal Pads left, so that's a good amount of cards. They end up using 1 switch card here, so usually they only play 2 at the very most. A lot of them are playing 1 now though, so I just want to get rid of both of those. I get the Vest because we definitely don't want them one-shotting Mimikyus. I'm thinking about if I want to Misfortune Sisters or Thorton my Rotom into a Mimikyu, which I do end up using the Thorton. And now I'm in a pretty good spot, I think, as long as I can like get some of their Gust cards off of like Erie's or Misfortune Sisters or whatever. I think we'll be in a fine spot. And they do end up bringing up my Genesect. That is a smart play. I think a lot of people here would have just knocked out the Pidgeot, but I think Genesect is correct because that's like they're trying to unlock their Prime Catcher for next turn. So they knock out Genesect this turn and next turn Prime Catcher my Pidgeot, but I can just throw the Forest there on my Genesect after I get it back. I got the Sandshrew down since they played their boss. Now they can't recover it with Pal Pad. And I just want to have Thorton in my hand just in case. We use Sisters, hit double Pokemon catchers. That is perfect. That is pretty much what is going to like make or break the game, their access to Gust effects. So I'm feeling pretty good about it at this point, or about the game at this point. They are putting on quite a bit of pressure right now, though. If they can get their if they flip heads on their last catcher, that's going to be kind of rough for me, because I really want to be able to pick stuff out of my deck with Pidgeot, and I think my other Pidgeot might be prized. I really can't remember at this point. They do flip tails on the catcher and just immediately concede because they knew they were unable to win the game at that point. But yeah, that game would have been over much sooner if Terapagos and Heavy Ball weren't prized. But that is generally how you want to play that matchup, and on to the next game. Alright, so this game we got a Duskull in the active here, and I chose to start Rotom because when you choose between starting Lumineon and Rotom just makes more sense. And I Arven for PAF, and I would like to get double Pidgey, but I do believe my other Pidgey's prized. So now I can just Rotom for 3. And yeah, we're up against Dragapult, but they have the Dusknoir line, which is always pretty terrifying. I think that's like the biggest or the hardest part about these control decks right now is Dusknoir can make games really awkward. Our opponent can choose when we get access to counter catcher. They can also take multiple prizes in one turn. Like if my opponent got down a Dreepy, like they can wipe my board if I don't get out of Pidgeot next turn, which is kind of crazy. I should also probably mention that I was choosing to go second blind with this deck. I'm pretty sure that's correct. My opponent probably also wanted to go second, and they just ended up passing with the Duskull in the active, which is kind of nice. Now, I'm not 100% sure what to do right here. I was thinking about benching the Lumineon for another forest target, or to get like Arven for candy, because I want to put a Bravery Charm on my Rotom here, but I just decide to play the Eerie and use the forest to get a rare candy. I get rid of Nest Ball and Fortune Sisters. I don't think I should have got rid of the Nest Ball. I'm not 100% sure what would have been a better discard, but I want the Nest Ball next turn, which is kind of, I don't know, puts me in a weird spot, because I want to either start using Fang Snipe, or I was even thinking about using the Water Ogerpon on if they evolve into Pidgeot, and just starting like a penny loop on that. I don't know if that's necessarily correct, but that's what I remember thinking at the time. And they do bench Lumineon, so that is a good Ogerpon Sob target. And I do immediately grab the Mist and put it on the Pidgeot, because I know a lot of Dragapult decks are playing TM Devo right now. And I just want to set up my Pidgeot so it can't be Devoed and they can't stack damage on it all game, and just put ourselves in a pretty decent spot. They Pidgeot for the Dracloak, so that's kind of a relief. We can breathe a little bit. We're probably not getting attacked here. And they do just pass. Now, the Dracloak can definitely be annoying because it can just knock out our Mimikyus. So we definitely want to start getting rid of those. But right now, there's really no rush to do anything. I just quick search for Arven. I don't know what I'm going to grab. I think I mostly just want a tool card for my Mimikyu. And then I think I end up retreating into the Mimikyu. And I grab Vacuum. Oh, I'm going to TM Devo. I forgot about that. Yeah, I just end up TM Devoing here, which is kind of a little bit cheesy. I forgot that they didn't use their forest. And yeah, I grab Vacuum so I can get rid of my own forest and Devo them. I forgot about this. I was like remembering their hand in my head from what it was before. I was like, oh, if I Devo them, they can't do anything, but they can just forest for another candy. And it really just sets them back a turn. It does let me put a charm on my Rotom though, which is kind of nice. And I can always Cyllene back the Devo and do that again later if I want. I don't think, watching this back, I'm not necessarily playing this matchup the greatest. I probably should have just kind of chilled out a little longer to make them do something. And they boss up my Mimikyu, I'm guessing, because they don't want me to be able to retreat the Mist off and put it somewhere. Or they're just setting up to knock out my Mimikyu with their Dracloak. So I just Pidgeot for Arven. I am not too sure what I'm going to grab with this. I would like if I could get into start Fang sniping right now, but I really can't because they bossed up my Mimikyu. Now I can't retreat and Fang Snipe that counter catcher. And I grab another Mimikyu. I charm the benched one because I don't want them to be able to Halucha and knock out my benched Mimikyu, but I'm not too sure if that was correct in hindsight. Yeah, I really probably should be prioritizing using Luxray here. Like, yeah, definitely, because I want to get rid of that counter catcher because they can pop the Duskull and set up for a counter catcher play on my Rotom or something, and like Halucha take 3 prizes, and that's going to put us in a pretty weird spot. I'm not sure if that's what they're going to end up doing, but they certainly could. I believe I do end up using Luxray next turn, and they just evolve to Dusclops and pass. I've been finding this a lot more than I used to with control decks, is people playing like a lot slower, which is interesting because on ladder, I feel like a lot of people used to just play all their cards as fast as possible up against control, but I think people got so used to playing against Snorlax that they're playing the games out a lot slower. But against this kind of control, going that slow isn't necessarily good because it just lets me get everything that I want into my hand. And here I can start Fang Sniping. I wish I had a Bravery Charm for my Luxray, but they shouldn't be able to knock me out anyway. Now my intention was to get rid of the counter catcher, but that Gravity Stone could be extremely annoying because we like to be able to send up Pidgeot and then get out whatever we want and retreat into it. So I do end up just getting rid of the Gravity Stone, and I think they end up using the counter catcher this turn. Yeah, they grab the Dusknoir and put it on my Luxray, if I remember correctly, which is kind of interesting. I'm not too sure about that. Oh, another play I was thinking about doing was throwing my Lost City in play last turn so that they would have to Lost Zone their Dusknoir line, but I did not end up doing that because I'm down my Vacuum, and if they play Headquarters, I don't want them to be able to stick that in play and then make it so I can't even use my my Terapagos or my Luxray, because I would really like to get rid of the Cloaks here, which Lost City would actually be pretty ideal right now, but there's no way I can get it and, you know, get enough cards to have the Lost City as well, which is kind of unfortunate. I would have liked to Lost Zone that Cloak. And they have a pretty decent response here. They fill their bench, so now we have a lot of sob targets. I think this game is in a pretty good spot right now. Another thing I think you want to do in this matchup is get a Sandshrew down with the Mist Energy, so that, because a lot of these decks will play one Turo. I'm not too sure how common Pal Pad is, but if it is common in the Dragapult deck, Sandshrew with a Mist Energy is definitely going to be pretty good. Yeah, and I just Turo my Terapagos, and I can just, yeah, I send up the Pidgeot, I can always retreat it, and I can just stick Mimikyu in the active, and I don't know, it's going to put them in a pretty hard spot. At some point, I'm going to be able to sob the Lumineon or the Pheasantipity. Probably the Lumineon's a better target because it can't attack. I can just use the Wellspring Ogerpon to lock that in the active and win the game. They only have 18 cards left. They're kind of running low on resources. I also could have used a Bravery Charm Luxray to keep picking out their hand, but I didn't think that they'd be able to do much after that, after just like shoving the Mimikyu in the active, and they do end up conceding. I think that was a little bit early of a concession. I do think we were going to win that game no matter what they did. I don't know if like maybe they saw that far ahead, but, or just what I would have to guess is they were kind of sick of it. Playing against control is definitely not fun, and they conceded, but we were either going to be able to stick something in the active with Ogerpon or clean up our board and just keep a Mimikyu in the active and force them to keep retreating out of like into their other Dracloak, because they would have had to set up another one to be able to knock out the Mimikyu, and then we can knock that out, and it's just going to like really run them thin on resources pretty quickly. And I do believe we would have ended up taking that one, of course, also while like spamming Sisters and Eries to remove all their super odds and stuff. So yeah, I think we're in a pretty good spot there. I do think Control's in a really good spot right now in the format. I want to start playing it a little more because, as you can see from those games, I'm definitely not the best Control player. I think there's like a lot of better stuff I could have done. Definitely check out All Out Blitzel for more like Control stuff to learn how to play it better. That's kind of what I've been checking out for the list, to figure out what the cards do and to just learn a little bit more about the deck. And I think the cool part about Control right now is you can kind of like throw different cards in for whatever like different matchups you're having trouble for, and then kind of really make the list your own, so that only really you know what's going on with the list. Like you have all your cards for each specific moment, which is what Pidgeot really enables, and it's kind of cool. But yeah, that is the deck. Definitely try it out. It's in a really good spot right now. Pretty good deck, pretty solid. And yeah, take care. Like or dislike, comment, and subscribe, and have a good one.